Hi beautiful souls, it's Tan back here today with another video in our Saturn series, and today we're going to be looking at 5 tips for Saturn in the 10th house, Saturn in Capricorn, or Capricorn ruling the 10th house. So I have made a video on Saturn in the 10th house, going through the karmic cycles of having Saturn in this placement. So I highly recommend that you watch that video first if you haven't, so links up above and the description box below, so you can get a more comprehensive understanding of the karmic patterns of having Saturn in this sign and house. So if you watch that video, and then you can come back and watch this one. So the first tip that I have for Saturn in the 10th house, Saturn in Capricorn, or Capricorn ruling the 10th house, is to spend time being honest with your true calling in life. Because most likely, with Saturn in the 10th house, there can be a need to fulfill social responsibilities with regards to your career that may not be your authentic calling. So there's, it's possible that at a certain point in your life, you reach that stage where you feel a lot of resistance with regards to where you're supposed to go and how far you've come in life, and it just doesn't feel like it's really going in the right direction for you, and there can be a lot of inertia. So you may find that there's at a period of your life, maybe during your Saturn return or a little bit after or before, you are needing to come back and consider your calling to find more success in life. The first step to really finding your true calling is, first of all, to kind of shift your mindset and perspective on a calling or a career possibility, a professional, life in the professional sphere. We're living in a society that values certain skill sets, certain jobs more than other jobs. And that kind of puts a lot of us into a box. It's a big box, but it's still a box. But there's a lot of other, possibilities out there outside the box. And shifting the mindset from what you should be doing to infinite possibilities is important here. And sometimes a calling does not have to be something that makes money for you. Sometimes you may just have a job and work in order to save money to fulfill your real calling. But sometimes a calling can become a career and you can make money from it. So it all depends. And so when you finally sort of shift the mindset, now it's really about having the faith in yourself, faith that you can strive and achieve this limitless possibility that you have set up for yourself. So if you've always thought that, you should be a teacher because of some sort of, social principle, and now you've decided you want to, garden for a living and sell your plants around here, the limitless, the possibilities are infinite now for you, and now you just have to cultivate the faith and the belief that you can get there. See what I mean? The third step to finding your calling is to understand that it is going to take time for you to reach that pinnacle of success that you want to set for yourself with regards to your real calling. Because when you are in touch with what you were really born here to do, it is going to, the path or the journey to get there is also going to be different than the usual path, and therefore you're going to have to work with your resources, with time management, with scheduling, with planning, that is going to be different from the typical path as well. So the whole journey and the destination itself is going to be your own, and it's going to be different, and therefore it's going to take more time. So once you kind of shift your mindset in this area, the next thing you can do to really figure out what your calling is to notice what is always on your mind. And this is important because a lot of us have things that's sort of playing on our mind, but it happens almost like subconsciously, and we try to stuff that away when we realize that we're thinking about it or wanting to do it, or we try to stuff it away so that we do it in our own time, and we focus on something that we think we should be thinking about and put that into our conscious mind and stuff the things that we really want to think about into our subconscious mind. And to really bring the subconscious into consciousness and to, be aware that this is what you're really always thinking about, that can really point you into the direction of your real calling in life. So if you really think about it, if you want to reach that pinnacle of success with regards to your calling, you're going to have to work on this every day. 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, or 5 days a week. So if you're working on something for, you spend a lot of time working on something that is hard for you, it's not in your nature to be thinking about this thing, it's gonna cause resistance because you have to do something that you're not naturally always thinking about. And the next thing that you can do to really figure out what your calling is to align your beliefs and values with that thing that you're always thinking about. So if you're always thinking about something that is absolute nonsense, then you have to really figure it out. Is there a value in this? Because there might be. But if there's not, then you have to consider, well, what else are you always thinking about, right? But if the thing that you're always thinking about has value and you really believe in that, then boom, we've got an alignment here. And the values, that you want to cultivate with regards to the calling should be something of a more giving nature, of a value with regards to why you need to contribute certain things to the society. Sometimes the things that really cause us irritation or frustration or anger within the society is really the thing that is our calling, because we can see something that a lot of other people may not see as a problem or an issue in the society, and that's why we are being born here and called to fix or change that particular thing. So follow your frustration and irritations. That might point you in the right direction of your calling as well. So the second tip that I have for having this Saturn placement is, after you've sort of figured out what your calling is to make a 10-year plan. Capricorn is all about strategy, and Capricorn can follow through if it's made a strategy. So the bigger and more strategic you can get, the more that you're going to know how to pursue that goal in your life. So the thing about a 10-year plan is you want to see yourself as being someone. Who do you want to be in that 10-year plan? And you can make a vision board for this, but the most important thing is to think, if you were that person 10 years from now, are you going to be happy with that? Have you reached your full potential? Or is it still, the image that you have is still someone who you can be in the next 3 years? And while you're working on, this 10-year plan, there has to be a certain amount of balance, meaning that you will need to consider various aspects of your life. How are you going to balance your professional life with your family, with your personal relationships, with your personal goals and achievements in life, with your health? But I really do think that the foundation of having, of what you're going to achieve in 10 years is really the element of giving. At the end of, when you've reached the destination, at the end of this 10-year plan, what is it that you would have given after 10 years? What is it that you would have contributed to the world? That's going to be really important. And once you have that sort of bigger vision, you can work to sort of a funnel or narrow down to, okay, well, if I want to get this in 10 years, what should I have achieved in 9 years, in 8 years, in 7 years, so, until you get to like in the next year, next 6 months, next 3 months, next month, next week. That's very Capricornian in nature. The third tip that I have for having Saturn in the 10th house in Capricorn, or having Capricorn rule in the 10th house, to either sort of study or mend or accept your relationship with your father or a fathering figure while you were growing up, because that's what Saturn represents, that's what Capricorn represents, and that's what the 10th house represents. If you can sort of see, now this is going to vary depending on each person's natal chart, you know, the complexity of the relationship that you can have with your father. If it's mendable, then I think it's really worth it to spend time with that fathering figure, to adjust any blockages or things that you may hold back from forming a more intimate relationship with them, if you can. If you can't, then, you know, allowing yourself to accept that that is the way you grew up, but that does not have to be the way that you live your life now. The principles they have instilled within you does not have to be your principle now. You can create your own foundation, your own structures in life, your own principles to live by. So you're either sort of moving away from that, or you're moving towards that, or maybe you're finding a balance of mending the relationship yet having your own independence. And the fourth tip that I have for having Saturn in the 10th house, in Capricorn, or Capricorn ruling 10th house, is to become disciplined. So this Saturn placement, more than any of the other Saturn placement, can bring some need to strive more, work harder, because of the nature of Capricorn energy. Capricorn energy does not take shortcuts. Capricorn energy always has integrity when it's pursuing its success. And especially when you have a calling, you're going to need to pursue your calling with the highest amount of integrity that you have. If not, you will experience exposure, you know, criticism, judgment coming your way. The long path has to be pursued with perseverance, you know, determination, strength, planning, consistency, and follow through. And to get into those kinds of skills, you know, you can engage in some activities that, you know, improve discipline, like climbing a mountain, running a marathon, or just doing some kind of exercise that you do every day to be disciplined with it. A strict diet program even. Because that's going to build on those skills, and it's, you know, these skills are really the skills of careful planning, like when you're going to run a marathon, or you're going to climb a mountain, or go on a strict diet. You know, it's going to be hard to go cold turkey. It's going to waste all of your energy if you just start running full speed at the start of a marathon, or if you start climbing full speed when you're climbing a mountain, because, well, you're going to experience, you know, altitude sickness, you know, especially when you're like trying to climb, okay, like Kilimanjaro. They actually teach you that you should take each step with consistency. Like each step that you take to climb Kilimanjaro should be taken at a certain rhythm and pace. Same with running a marathon, same with going on a strict diet. So this kind of, you know, the turtle and the hare, and how the turtle wins the race instead of the hare, is really much going to be a very beneficial skill for Saturn in this placement. The last tip that I have for Saturn in the 10th house in Capricorn, or Capricorn ruling 10th house, is to stop the guilt trip. And this is very interesting, because I think that, you know, with the Saturn placement, you may not even know that, you know, at certain times in your life you're guilt tripping, meaning that you're sort of thinking to yourself, oh, I'm not as successful as others and I feel bad about it, or, you know, I'm going to fail for sure and people will judge me and my calling, and they're gonna laugh at me, they're gonna say I told you so, I'm definitely not gonna make it. You know, these thoughts that may come up is a result of that guilt trip. I think that being aware of why we have been conditioned to feel guilty about certain things is very important here. And with Capricorn energy, the guilt trip comes from family. The reason why people sort of use techniques to make you feel guilty is because they want you to be attached emotionally or materially to them. So you think about, you know, if let's say a father says to a child, you should be a doctor, and the child says, but I want to be a teacher. And the father says, well, if you're going to be a teacher, then that's just not you're not going to be able to use your real skills. But let's say the child eventually becomes a teacher. The child's going to, well, the child probably be an adult. That person becomes a teacher. They will still feel internally that, I feel guilty because I haven't really used my skills properly then. And that's coming because my father told me this. But the reason why the father has told the child this is because the father needs that attachment from the child. So the father wants to instill their influence into the child even when the child has grown up and become an adult. The father wants to make sure that the child still thinks back to what the father has wanted them to be. So the father wants to feel needed, wants to make sure that the child still remembers what they said and what their needs were. So they do it in a way of manipulation and guilt. So, you know, guilt is really just an illusion. There's really no reason why we need to feel guilty about something unless we really did something wrong, okay? And then we should feel guilty. But this is a different kind. You know, guilt tripping is not the same. It's not the same as when you do something wrong and you feel guilty about it, because then you should. But a lot of the times, you know, guilt tripping happens because of something like this, and you don't actually need to be guilty for that, for being a teacher, right? So the awareness of this will help to dispel the illusion in the first place. Once you're aware, the next thing that you can do is to cut the guilt tripping games, meaning that you just do what you feel you are called to do after you found your calling, and keep going with it. There's nothing, you know, the father does not really think. Sometimes, you know, with the guilt trip, the father or the person who's guilt tripping you does not really think that you're not capable. They don't really think that you have done something wrong, not used your skills. Like I said, it's just they need the attachment and the need. So do what you want to do with your life. Be independent and follow your calling. And don't beat yourself up and don't judge yourself, and stop the guilt trip. So some books that I think is going to be really, really interesting for this Saturn placement is, the first book is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I think that pretty much speaks for itself. How he talks about following your dreams and, you know, discovering that, well, at the end of the day, you have it within yourself already. And I think also with The Alchemist, it has that 9th house Sagittarian energy to it, because the character goes on a journey. And I think that that's really important, because sometimes in order to really discover what your calling is in life, you have to pass the 9th house to get to the 10th house, meaning that you have to have some life experience. You have to have, you know, tried things out, experimented, figured out what your beliefs are, what your values are, to get to that place of knowing what your calling is. So I think that this book is that transition from the 9th house to the 10th house, if you see what I mean. And the next book that I think is really interesting for this Saturn placement is The Happiness of Pursuit. In this book, the character goes on a hike, but once they get to the destination, it's not really what they thought it was going to be. But the way back down from the hike, they start to find that there's joy to still be had within the journey itself, within the path that they're still on. And sometimes the joy or the discovery of the path leading to the destination is what builds the right destination for you. And some books that, some movies that I think is really going to be interesting for this Saturn placement is Whiplash. This is really an interesting movie about how much you are willing to do for your dreams, how much you're going to stick with things to get to your dreams, how to not give up, but at the same time, tough love, sometimes tough love, really the lessons that you can take from that builds the strength for you to have the energy to achieve your goals. And another movie that I think is really going to resonate with the Saturn placement is Good Will Hunting. So Goodwill Hunting, I think, suits the Saturn placement because it really talks about what it really means to be someone, to be a somebody in the world, which Saturn in the 10th house all wants to be someone in the world. But it gets the truth of that. That being someone in the world, sometimes, you know, it's not really about the accomplishment that you want people to see and sort of that mid-heaven level persona, but it's about the character that you build in yourself. It's about the person that you become, the person of a high caliber that you can become, is what is going to be seen on the mid-heaven level for people to respect and appreciate. That's being someone. So there you have it, guys. My tips for having Saturn in the 10th house, or Saturn in Capricorn, or Capricorn ruling 10th house. If you have this placement and you've tried any of these tips, you can leave a comment below. Let us know what your experiences have been. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button if you haven't. If you already subscribed, then thank you very much for coming along. I do birth chart readings and relationship and synastry readings. You can find more information on my website. And I'll be back very soon. Have a beautiful day, beautiful souls. Bye.